As we discussed in an earlier program, one of the prerequisites for initiation into a brotherhood is that you have a balanced personality. In pursuing the practical, spiritual, and intellectual experiences which are necessary for a balanced personality, you greatly benefit from a sound, stable, and economically secure environment in which to operate. Living on the margin of your wages is a harrowing experience. In fact, being in a state of continual frustration because of insufficient money to do the things you need to do leads to a sense of stagnation and getting nowhere in life as valuable time slips by. To suffer actual want because of your low-paying jobs is counterproductive to soul growth, inasmuch as it tends to preoccupy you with your unmet mundane needs. It is more than difficult to maintain the proper attitudes for soul growth when you are not sure where your next meal is coming from, or if your personal economics will come apart if you should miss one day of work. Everyone has the inherent ability to create a prosperous and abundant life which will more fully aid him in the attainment of his initiation into brotherhoods. Using the laws of precipitation and mental attraction, you can have whatever you want. With a proper set of values and intelligent priorities, you can enjoy a good life and a personal sense of harmony, as well as a better realization of what constitutes security in your life. Prosperity begins with your attitudes. You can focus great amounts of special attention on precipitative techniques for having wealth, but poor attitudes would not provide the subconscious mental climate supportive of yielding substantial success. An all-pervading prosperity consciousness is a valuable attribute to help assure that your environment provides all your spiritual and mundane needs. You should develop the realization and the constant awareness that you are one of God's special creatures, who is loved by Him and who has His encouragement to enjoy all the happy blessings of human existence. God intends that you share fully in the abundance of nature and the earth. Abundance is your birthright. But most of our world's societies unconsciously ingrain concepts of personal unworthiness in their children, while those persons who already have wealth and power conspire to block others from competing with them by setting up class distinctions and hereditary titles for the propertied classes. It never ceases to amaze me that people living in this rich nation of ours can still personally suffer a poverty consciousness, but they do in huge numbers. Even though a person owns an automobile, a lavish hi-fi outfit with a collection of recordings, a furnished apartment, and many toys for grown-ups, he nevertheless can feel that he is hanging on the brink of financial disaster. Life has become a grind and a harrowing rat race for him, and he feels like the wolf is at his door all the time instead of feeling prosperous and secure. Why? Probably because of his poor management of money and excessive debt financing of his desires. Americans' priorities are set by the Madison Avenue advertising boys, and if you try to live the American dream of being expected to own a new home with a swimming pool, drive a flashy car, and vacation annually in Europe by the time you are 25 years old, then bankruptcy and financial ruin is your likely lot. To gather many possessions for which you have to mortgage every spare dollar of income is to then feel deprived and harassed. In short, poor. Your unpaid-for possessions keep you running. Intelligent and realistic priorities are a key to prosperity consciousness. Staying out of debt and not contracting for the payment of interest on loans is the way to solvency and building up savings. There is nothing like money in the bank to make you feel like you have a comfortable cushion against unforeseen contingencies. I have been told, however, by many people that there is no way that they can get ahead or put money in the bank. I have discovered that there are usually two reasons for that. One, they would not consider giving up any leisure time to work at a second part-time job. Or two, if they do increase their income that way, they soon get themselves into hock to the extent of their increased income. Result, worry, not a sense of prosperity. How much money flows through your hands is not the key to prosperity consciousness. Now, I'm the last person to put limits on what a person can hope to acquire. But when your over-acquisition of goods drags down your prosperity consciousness, the constant message you impress on your subconscious mind is, I barely have enough to make ends meet. I can't do the things I want. I'm a prisoner of the system. All I do is slave my life away. What a miserable way to live your life. And you do it to yourself. How could anyone hope to feel that he is in command of his destiny under such negative bombardment of the very centers of his mind which determine what conditions he will attract into his environment? Moreover, such destructive attitudes go completely against the workings of mental transmutation. One of the most expensive attitudes a person can have going against him is that he must impress others with a show of affluence, even if he is not yet wealthy. In this day and age, owning an automobile is often a necessity. If you can possibly do without a car, by all means avoid buying one. But generally speaking, if you must have a car, it is essentially for transportation. Buy a 2-year-old, good, used, conventional model car to get your best dollar value. If you think you must have the latest model sports car or Cadillac at 3 to 4 times the price, you are simply throwing money away. Then you are no longer buying transportation, but a show of prestige, which almost no one really cares about. They are interested in their image of prestige, certainly not yours. If you are not in a position to buy a luxury vehicle with cash on the barrelhead, you have no business acquiring it. To spend $7,000 extra plus another $2,000 in interest is insanity, even if everyone else you know does it. The realities of economics demand that in order to get ahead, you must accumulate earned credits. The man who starts a small business with borrowed money usually makes his lenders rich with the interest he pays, while he finds himself on a treadmill of his own devising. The man who accumulates earnings first by working 2 jobs and then investing in his own business is in control of his destiny and is in a very favorable position to compete profitably in the marketplace. Most Americans waste money appallingly. They burn it on the altar to prestige. The young man who tries to build his self-esteem by buying the companionship of the flashiest girls, who make it clear that they won't go out with a cheapskate who spends less than $50 a night to wine and dine them, is throwing his money away. The girl is likely loyal only to the next bigger spender who comes along. They love the prestigious places, not the poor guy who foots the bill for them to be seen around town where they hope to attract the attention of the real big shots. However, the working girls also blow their salaries on new party dresses and evening gowns and beauty parlors so as to appear like one of the elite. Real human companionship involves loving and respectful feelings between a man and woman. They don't have to spend big money on a date or buy or impress one another. Thrift is the base of prosperity, certainly not credit card accounts with unpaid balances equal to one's annual wage. More than 10% of credit card holders now owe that much, plus 14% interest. The man or woman who aspires to brotherhood must have his or her financial affairs well under control, and their sense of values contribute to selecting intelligent priorities. Most of the men in the Stell group bought their own tuxedo because there are a number of formal dinners, dances, and other social occasions every year in Stell. But virtually all of those tuxedos were bought second-hand from formal wear rental shops. They all fit, they are flawless, and in no way do they look like used merchandise. Most of them were purchased for less than $15. Many of the women in Stell have gotten over their erstwhile snobbish feeling that they wouldn't want their child to be seen in hand-me-down clothes. Baby clothes and children's outgrown but otherwise perfectly good clothing passes from family to family in Stell and sees service on a half-dozen youngsters before showing wear and needing finally to be discarded. These ladies are excellent shoppers for their own clothing, and they have learned to buy used garments that are absolutely flawless and have been worn perhaps but once by a wealthy woman who then gives them to a charity shop and deducts their value from her husband's income tax as a donation. Our ladies pay less than 1/10 of the original cost for perfect, high-quality fashions. It is not how much money you spend, but what kind of value you enjoy that really matters. What price prestige? Keeping up with the Joneses can make you poor or economically hard-pressed at best. We've learned it is more fun to beat the system. With judicious shopping, you can find marvelous bargains in used furniture from estates and shops dealing in quality used furniture at a small fraction of the cost of new furniture. However, Stell people will not settle for poor quality, for that is bad for one's prosperity consciousness. To live with shabby furniture is depressing. You should never allow your home environment to be less than neat, nor should you suffer it to be other than aesthetically pleasing to your best tastes. To acquire tasteful furnishings and then allow your pets or children to tear and soil them would be to reduce your environment to the level of dreary sloppiness. To not maintain value and preserve the appearance of quality is to throw money out the window along with your prosperity consciousness. One of the things that we make a considerable effort to instill in new Stell people is a sense of elegance. Through example, we have shown people here that it is truly uplifting to have supper every evening with linen on the table, crystal, silver, and fine china. We found these household items to be a high priority to acquire for establishing a sense of richness. It doesn't require a great deal of money to buy just 2 or 4 place settings. People soon discover a sense of well-being when they follow our suggestion, and there are no 2 ways about its working effectively. Fine crystal definitely has a different feeling in a mouth than a 15-cent glass out of the dime store, and genuine silver has a different feel and taste than stainless steel. For centuries, people have noted that silver conveys a tactile pleasure which is not available in other kinds of metals. We discourage any attitudes tending towards snobbishness in Stell, but it is important that we have these niceties because they tend to uplift people's spirits and convey a sense of inner richness and prosperity. We have always emphasized having as much beauty as possible in your environment. Set aside some money for that painting that you want, or that piece of sculpture that would really look nice over the bookcase in the living room. Invest in a linen tablecloth instead of a plastic-coated one. You will literally enjoy it. Art is important. Even the way that people dress and groom themselves either makes them contribute to the artistry of the surroundings or be a sloppy detriment. I have emphasized that many, many times, and it is a reality. High self-esteem and a prosperity consciousness are clearly mirrored in one's confident, assured walk and one's neat, clean attire. Stell people are readily recognized in the nearby towns by these traits in their appearance. When the men come home from construction all speckled with concrete, with mud caked on their boots and with their work clothes all sweaty, they clean up, usually put on a suit and tie, and sit down to a dinner feeling civilized. It really puts it all together for them after a long day's work. Not only do they have the satisfaction of their work, but the satisfaction of feeling like a cultured human being. They never feel like they are going to seed. The homes in Stell are provided with fine cabinetry and carpeting. People then improve their home refinement by refinement until it fulfills their sense of beauty and brings them closer in touch with some of the things that represent the higher points of culture. But we suggest that they furnish their homes as they can afford the cash without resorting to installment financing or disturbing their reserves. In 1973, when the group began its move to Stell from Chicago, I remember telling 3 young women who had recently joined the group, right from college, that I didn't think they should try to move down to the new community until they each had saved $1,000 to buy some furniture and cover their costs of moving and setting up their new households. They were appalled at the huge sum I had specified, for none had ever had that much money at one time. But each of them came to me within 3 months to proudly show me their savings account passbooks with $1,000 recorded. They were surprised they could do it, but of course there was a strong incentive. They simply had refrained from frittering away $300 or so per month. They were amazed at how much money they normally wasted on things for which they had little to show after spending that much money. Like most Americans, money had always just slipped through their fingers without their being very conscious of it or being able to recreate an accounting for it afterward. Having an accumulation of ready money allows you to take advantage of excellent cash bargains. However, you have to be careful that accumulated money doesn't burn a hole in your pocket so that you become tempted to buy things you really don't need. Young people, particularly, are not very conscious of the comparative values of things and are noted for impulse buying. One hears the inexperienced person crying, "I want it," when he should be asking, "Do I really need it?" Until a bride becomes an experienced comparison shopper, she wastes a veritable fortune in a year of grocery buying. We have excellent comparison shoppers at Stell who have taught women married many years how to significantly extend their food dollar. The major problem with most people is that they never consciously analyze or budget what they are spending for what they are getting. Incredibly, people will go out and buy a house or a car on time and never inquire about the interest rate or be aware that interest adds about 2.5 times to the sale price of a house. If the monthly payment looks affordable, they'll buy. If you want prosperity, you must either make more than you spend or spend less than you make. The latter usually is easier. But even nations must adhere to the same inescapable economic rule. They must consume less than they produce or suffer economic privation or collapse. Our own nation's currency suffers continually from inflationary devaluation because the United States now consumes more than it produces. What originally made this country an economic giant was its development of mass production in the early part of this century, by which it successfully competed against the craftsman concept of production long used throughout the world. Our goods were better, cheaper, and more consistent in quality than anyone else's, so we prospered. We used automation first after World War II in order to stay ahead of the other nations which by then had figured out how to compete with us in mass production. But by the 1960s, the rest of the world caught up and outproduced our own labor force, which had priced itself out of the world market through high wages and underproduction. Since World War II, our government has been spending more money than what taxes and bond sales take in. over and above the $700 billion in recorded debt, our government runs deficits of tens of billions of dollars annually, which is paid for by fiat money issued, in effect, by the Federal Reserve System. As this created money, for which no goods were produced to earn it, gets into the national economy, it chases what goods are available and causes the prices of those goods to rise in response to low supply versus high demand. Inflation makes all savings worth less in buying power every month. Whatever amount the Federal Reserve issues in fiat money reduces the eventual buying power of all savings by that amount. Inflation is disguised bankruptcy of a nation's government. It is also a hidden form of taxation. As the value of dollars which are used in international trading is reduced by inflation, the dollar's value relative to more stable world currencies is lessened. The foreigners who must buy U.S. goods with the U.S. dollars they hold are also being gypped. So they dump U.S. dollars whenever they can and trade them for more stable currencies which will not devalue while they accumulate them. Meanwhile, U.S. consumers have purchased many items for which they have contracted to pay in the future. Banks have issued this consumer credit, which creates unearned buying power. The money to pay this back must be earned by the borrowers from the sale of goods which will not be manufactured until future years. Americans by the tens of millions are guilty of buying things they have not yet earned. They produce less efficiently every passing year, and our bankrupt government spends tens of billions of dollars it doesn't have every year, taking equivalent value away from Americans and foreigners alike. How do you like that national karma? The mounting trade deficit and increasing inflation tells us incontrovertibly that Americans are consuming more than we are producing. To recover and survive, our nation must have productive efficiency, lower taxes, and the government staying within its income. Americans habitually think in terms of clever ways to gain at the expense of others, and this way of thinking is akin to the attitude of racketeers towards others. That is inharmonious with universal law, and he who is not in a state of internal and external harmony has an uphill struggle developing prosperity consciousness. Instead, an aura of acquisitiveness bordering on greed and what's in it for me attitudes are more commonplace in our country. Grab the goodies while you can is the watchword instead of cooperating in those Christ-like ways which best assure that everyone profits fairly. It is an absolute law that no social system can long survive wherein some segments profit at the expense of others. No system can hope to prosper permanently unless each individual in that system prospers. The prosperity of the whole depends upon the prosperity of all its component individuals. Your prosperity consciousness should properly be extended to hope for everyone to enjoy abundance. To be miserly in your ideas by seeking relatively greater prosperity for yourself than others have, so that you can be one up on everyone else, smacks of seeking prestige and comparatively greater power over others. This actually goes counter to attaining prosperity consciousness because it stems from fear and worry, which poison your subconscious mind with negatives. Developing a prosperity consciousness depends on inner harmony, generosity, concern for fairness to others, determination to produce efficiently, consuming less than you produce, awareness of values, and wise management of time and assets. Prosperity consciousness is a way of thinking about yourself, and your emotional tone largely determines the degree of enthusiasm, happiness, and expectation of success you express. Your personal attitudes and emotional state combine to determine your self-image and how people respond to you. A person's skills and education have far less to do with whether he becomes a success than his attitudes and actual expectations of life. You can't feel good about yourself if you are struggling with feelings of guilt brought about by engaging in activities that are underhanded, immoral, or illegal. Doing things which are wrong produces the low emotional tones which allow you to continue to do those things that are detrimental to the welfare of others and yourself. The cure is to discipline yourself to stop doing whatever is eroding your self-esteem. There are outward actions you can take to help raise your emotional tone so that you may achieve prosperity consciousness, which is directly related to being healthy, happy, and enthusiastic. Essentially, these actions involve changing your environment, if necessary, to conditions more conducive to positive emotions. Your environment includes people and places like family, job, and neighborhood. Tempestuous, angry, unhappy surroundings produce disturbed individuals, and you should remove yourself from such negative conditions if you hope to improve your emotional tone. While dealing with angry, unhappy, non-sane people, you cannot help but be dragged down. Get such people out of your life and cut communication lines with them. They are poison. It is better to end a marriage to a spouse whose presence keeps your emotions chronically negative. When you move into a congenial atmosphere where friendship, agreement with your ideas, and uplifting, authentic communications are prevalent, your emotional tone rises dramatically. You must not permit yourself to live in a squalid neighborhood or apartment, for this will inevitably drag down your efforts toward developing a prosperity consciousness. Good nutrition and care of your body is essential to a sense of well-being. The fatigue incident to poor health habits produces a loss of stability, which inescapably results in low emotional tone. These include lack of proper rest, exposure to high noise pollution, eating a junk food diet, and using drugs like caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana. While developing your prosperity consciousness, it is very helpful to engage in working toward a worthy, long-range goal which is important to you. The greater command you attain over yourself, your circumstances, and your environment, the higher your emotional tone becomes and stays. Every little success breeds confidence, and confidence, in turn, encourages your reaching out for more areas in which you expect to be successful. Napoleon wasn't born knowing how to be a brilliant general or a clever politician able to create and rule an empire. He started out with a small success by being promoted to a corporal in the army. Step by step from that point he reached out for bigger things to try, and like the rest of us, most of the things he tried he was successful at. This encouraged him to greater ambitions until he learned to deal effectively with world politics and empire. Don't sell yourself short. Sure, you may fail once in a while, but failure is not a foe sent to crush you. Failure is a teacher. If you fail, study the reasons why. Learn what you did wrong. Then use that new information to succeed. Be persistent. Failing does not mean that you are a terrible person, not worthy of any good. It only means you did not consider something. Learn from your mistakes. Never let your own thought patterns work against you. Replace any self-deprecating thoughts immediately with positive and success-engendering ones. Remember, what you think is actually what you become. If you want to be a different person tomorrow, change your mode of thinking today. Compliment yourself. Remind yourself of your strengths and how you have overcome your shortcomings in the past. You know how good you feel when somebody visits with you or has supper at your home and says as he leaves, "What a great meal you served. I had a wonderful time. The evening was very entertaining. What an enjoyable person you are to be with." Well, with those kinds of comments, you couldn't help but feel expansive and on top of the world. If you remember to remind yourself of your good points, your own words work as effectively on your subconscious mind as well as another person's compliments. Your sense of prosperity and general well-being will surely grow. Think abundance and think wealth. See yourself having the wherewithal to do all those things that you want to do. As a mind, you have unlimited powers. But if you convince yourself of limitations, then they are yours to keep. It is natural to have doubts and fears, but you must not give them actual power by dwelling upon such considerations. Dismiss them immediately from your mind and replace them with positive images. What you get your mind to habitually hold as the only possibilities you'll accept, your mind will both consciously and subconsciously precipitate into reality for you. If you decide that you are entitled to the best and then mentally stake your claim, you can be as prosperous as you choose, step by step, according to your plan for your eventual goal. Do not expect to be suddenly transported as if by a genie into wealth. It comes in a logical sequence, and you have to arrange it. An important part of becoming prosperous is to do the things which lead to increased income. By holding specific thoughts that engender etheric patterns in your etheric pressure chamber, you will attract the people, conditions, and opportunities which will lead to prosperity. However, you must be prepared to do something which will capitalize on opportunities as they present themselves. Remember, God's laws always work, and there is no reason in the world why you can't enjoy a prosperous life if you fastidiously follow them. While an abundant environment is conducive to soul growth, wealth is not a substitute for continuous and conscious character uplift. Wealth is not something which automatically solves your egoic problems or gives you special status in the eyes of God. Rather, wealth is something which allows you to do much good, provided, of course, that you are so disposed. We are culturally conditioned to accept mythic excuses that prosperity and wealth are attainable only by a few very lucky people. There also is a prevalent attitude promoted by anti-establishment propaganda that the only way one can become wealthy is at the expense of others through some objectionable business practice or rape of the environment. It would seem that you are thus expected to believe you must choose to be either a victim or a victimizer. These negative attitudes are crippling for those who would like to be in a prosperous environment. The exchange of goods and services between human beings is an activity encompassing divine laws. Business provides one of the main opportunities for interaction between people. Hoping for the good things in life is not enough. You must do the things that are necessary to secure the prosperity you desire. When you act with assurance and unwaveringly expect and believe that prosperity is yours, it truly manifests. As we have discussed in another program, one of the basic rules which is absolutely necessary for you to follow in order to sustain prosperity is the law of tithes. In tithing, you donate 10% of your net earnings to a cause or organization which is, in fact, doing God's work. By thus helping other people along the path, you are compensating the higher beings for the blessings which they provide to all of us daily. To not tithe will exhaust karmic credits which you may have accumulated towards your karmic account, and that will detract from your attainment of the things you desire. It is interesting to note that after you practice tithing for a while, the amount you donate is replaced by a corresponding increase in income. When one serves as a good steward of whatever prosperity he has gained, he is given stewardship over even greater amounts of money. In this way, more assets can be channeled through you to assist in God's plan for the uplift of mankind. Over the years, I have met many individuals who are earning marginal incomes. After a period of tithing and applying the other principles which lead to prosperity, these people have greatly raised their income and now enjoy a level of prosperity which before seemed impossible to them. In all of the universe, there is no such thing as something for nothing. If you wish to enjoy a certain condition or item, you must have sufficient karmic credits to retain it. Therefore, you need to earn credits. When you work at a job for an agreed-upon salary, the karmic credits you gain for your personal services are converted into cash at the end of your pay period. Karmic credits which are not paid off in cash can be converted directly into ownership of things without ever being translated into cash. These excess karmic credits are just as valuable as cash, and they are gained by performing service in excess of what you contract to be paid for. Doing a better or more efficient job than what is expected is one way to earn excess credits. This is true whether you are in the shop or dealing with customers directly. By doing that extra bit, you not only gain karmic credits, but you can build a reputation for service, reliability, and quality. The employee who is precise, efficient, and trustworthy is very quickly recognized and promoted by management. The business that consistently surpasses the expectations of its customers quickly grows. Excess service given outside your business environment gains karmic credits just as effectively. In accordance with mental attraction and mental precipitation, see yourself as a prosperous, happy person, enjoying the conditions you want for yourself. Picture these scenes frequently because they will be more readily realized. Your confidence in the full expectation that your desires are coming to fruition hastens their entrance into your environment. You should never forget that you can enjoy an abundant life and that you are entitled to it. Let me recap with some reminders for acquiring prosperity. 1. Think big. Your success can be no greater than the size of your dreams and plans. 2. Know that with your prosperity consciousness, you can expect to get your rightfully intended share of the world's abundance. 3. Act like you already are well-to-do, but don't spend money like it. Make sure your actions and personal appearance present an image of self-esteem. The person who thinks in disciplined ways dresses as sharp as his brain is keen. Try to eat at least one meal a month in an elegant setting. You can be at home, but use your silverware, china, and crystal. Set a fine table and preferably invite friends to enjoy it with you. 4. Don't try to enjoy things you can't yet afford. This never works. It actually has the opposite effect in the long run. 5. Look for ways to satisfy the needs of other people. Be productive and service-oriented. Produce more than you consume. 6. Maintain a wholesome, cheerful, and confident attitude about life. Never speak ill of others. 7. Foster an attitude of cooperation. People pulling together and focusing their energies create a mastermind effect, which enhances your ability to succeed. 8. Maintain friends who encourage your success. If you stay with people who consider themselves losers, you may well become one of that crowd. 9. Move out of squalid quarters and away from negative, non-sane people. These conditions only tear you down. 10. Always see yourself in your mind's eye as being the person you seek to become, capable, actionful, and successfully growing towards mastership. 11. Above all, observe God's laws. They are your keys to lasting peace and prosperity. Start a tithing program today if you have not already done so. 12. Maintain an attitude of respectful thankfulness toward the higher beings whose help and support is constantly being given to you. Are there any questions?
One of the points you made in the lecture gave me the impression that you don't precipitate wealth by letting it just happen, but that you should plan the whole thing step by step. Until you said that, I thought you precipitate without thinking up a specific plan, that you just visualize your goal and the universe takes the necessary steps to make it happen for you.
It is true that you do not have to understand all the mechanics of how the universe works, but in order for you to get and retain your precipitation, you have to cooperate further with the universe. You may visualize your dream house becoming available for sale in the used house market, and your use of mental precipitation will make seemingly miraculous connections in order for a house that meets your specifications to be for sale to you. But you still had to plan how to pay for it and make your financial and personal affairs dovetail with the house's delivery into your environment. Becoming wealthy is far more complex than buying a house, and you must earn wealth through service. Praying for your ship to come in when you've never launched it is futile. Precipitating your winning the sweepstakes is pointless unless you have the karmic credits from a former lifetime to retain such a windfall. Working and planning to become wealthy entails many precipitative endeavors over many years. Your work and strategies may have to be adjusted often, and the intermediates shifted around. The main point of my discussion, however, was that without a prosperity consciousness and a sense of your worthiness of wealth, you will not be successful at acquiring wealth. Even if you never accumulate great wealth, a sense of being prosperous and in possession of all you need is a precious and uplifting attitude to have. Another factor that you don't need to understand is how your subconscious mind works to sustain a precipitation goal impressed on it by your conscious mind. I usually don't make a point of this, since most people don't understand the mechanics any better for my having mentioned it. But your midbrain translates the commands which come to it from your cortex into a continuous broadcasting of your desires into the universe. Your brain's cortex acts as the architect for your will, and your midbrain serves as the contractor which carries out the plan sent down to it. This is a brain activity of which you are unconscious. The myriad details are worked out in your midbrain, and only the mystic touches on awareness of this mechanism. The more precisely and unequivocally you consciously impress your visualized desire on this subconscious brain process, the better the midbrain can carry it out. The midbrain dutifully retains the attitudes it most frequently picks up from your cortex consciousness. And if you think of things detrimental to others or of angry, revengeful scenarios, the midbrain harbors these and precipitates them into your environment. It is very difficult to precipitate a good item or condition into your life if it has to counter the usual negative views which today's society constantly impresses on your subconscious. These negative views are imposed by your acceptance of what people say who deprecate you, including yourself, and by exposing yourself to degrading social experiences and to cynical and perverse entertainment and world views. The average person's subconscious mind must be reprogrammed by means of thoughts of self-esteem, non-guilting activities, and positive, uplifting attitudes, in short, gaining a prosperity consciousness, so that there are no old cross-precipitative unworthinesses carried in your midbrain which can work against a current desire for precipitating something good. Are there any more questions? Yes?
I'd like to change the subject. I found your discussion of wearing tuxedos and having fancy dishes and crystal quite offensive. Such materialism is snobbish and elitist, and I don't see how it could lead to spiritual advancement.
Well, I'm all for discouraging snobbishness. The key is enjoyment of elegance and development of aesthetic senses which begin with body sensitivities. Appreciation of beauty is certainly an aspect of spiritual advancement. Primarily, the exercises I recommend promote prosperity consciousness, and your spiritual development proceeds more rapidly in a financially secure environment which is under your control. So far as being elite is concerned, the community itself makes no apologies for encouraging excellence in all things. Thomas Jefferson spoke with great admiration of the dream that men in America need not suffer a hereditary aristocracy. Indeed, Americans are disdainful of manners suggestive of the European nobles. What Jefferson envisioned instead was a natural aristocracy of excellence by which men from all walks of life could naturally rise to serve the nation. Just because the European nobility and the rich enjoy fine things does not mean that for you to enjoy these same fine things is to imply that you aspire to snobbery. Crystal and silver are not responsible for who enjoys them. If you enjoy opera, ballet, and symphonic music, it does not make you a snob if rich people also enjoy such entertainment.
Maybe so, but I think wearing tuxedos and neckties is clearly snobbish. Wearing clean blue jeans and a clean shirt is just as spiritual. The style of the clothes you wear has nothing to do with the cosmic scheme of egoic advancement.
I fully agree that style and dress is no denominator of spiritual advancement. People in China, Africa, and Bali wear costumes quite different from each other, yet they can become members of the Brotherhoods. However, certain symbols and clothing styles convey respect or beautiful elegance, and these symbols are thoroughly ingrained in all of us, even if subconsciously. To flout or ignore these symbols is virtually impossible. You make all kinds of statements with the clothing you wear, and the language is universally understood within a given culture. Whether your clothes say, "I don't care about myself," or "I don't care about you," or "I respect you," or "I'm against what you stand for," there is no question as to what is being conveyed. It's true that spots do not make a leopard, but they let you know what kind of a cat he is. Making the effort to wear the going symbols of beauty, elegance, and mutual respect is personally rewarding and powerfully impresses your subconscious brain with who and what you aspire to become, namely, prosperous. But let's recognize that behind one's rebellion against formal wear and business suits usually lies a sense of personal inadequacy and therefore rejection of any symbols associated with some higher level of affluence, power, and social poise which one doesn't have, the "I can't have it, so I don't want it" reaction. Students of the Lemurian philosophy are expected to become totally comfortable as equals in dealing with elected high officials, business tycoons, and wealthy individuals in high society. We are all human beings on this planet, and the only justifiable deference due anyone is if he becomes an adept or a master. Our conditioned awe of persons of position, power, and rank is at the root of our not truly recognizing that we are all equals due the same respect and kindness. To be afraid of or rude to another person, whomever he or she may be, is due to our feeling either inadequate or superior, and both of these are wrong attitudes. To be awed by celebrities and persons of wealth is to say, "I am less than these luminaries," whereas being contemptuous of them is reverse snobbishness based on sour grapes or not having yet earned fame and fortune. I don't care to see people lessen themselves and their sense of self-esteem that way. We have a world to build, and we all need to work together. Most of the wealthy and the famous are people who have already learned how to use the laws of the universe, which I've been talking to you about. I expect you to become successful, self-fulfilled, effective doers in the important task of creating a great civilization and running the world as Christ has outlined for us. Learn God's laws and use them in your personal partnership with Him. Remember, there isn't anything in the universe that you and God can't accomplish together. I see we've run out of time for further questions. Thank you.